Are you ready to challenge yourself and think bigger? I'm your host, Marianne Marchesi, and together we'll hear the unfiltered, unscripted stories of those who've taken big risks and transformed their bold ideas into reality. Season 2 is brought to you by multi-award-winning law firm Legalite, where bold ideas thrive. It's one of Australia's and definitely Melbourne's most loved gin brands, born out of Healesville, Victoria. And today I'm with the co-founder, Cameron Mackenzie. Cam and his two friends started Four Pillars Gin in 2013, before gin was really a thing here, and put modern Australian gin on the map. Four Pillars was crowned International Gin Producer of the Year 3 times, produces over 1 million bottles a year, and was fully acquired by Lion in 2023. Along the way, Cam became arguably Australia's most awarded gin distiller, with a Hall of Fame induction or two to show for it. And now he's done something almost nobody does after an exit like that, gone back to square one, this time in perfume. Cam, I've really been looking forward to this. Welcome to Bold Ideas.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited. I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done anything like this for a little while.
Oh, well, I feel honoured to have you re-enter the podcast world with Bold Ideas.
Excellent, excellent.
So the Four Pillars origin story famously begins with you and a friend at a bar, and they had poured pre-mixed tonic, I think, over a gin, and you just thought that was an absolute travesty.
Pretty much. It was Tanqueray 10, which is a beautiful gin. My house is never without a bottle of Tanqueray 10.
Yeah, it's a good gin.
And I was just really looking forward to it and saw this sort of soda post-mix gun come out and destroy it. You know, I'd worked in the wine industry with Stu for a long time, in and out of the wine industry, but you know, flavour and aroma it's everything, and quality is everything. And all of a sudden you've got this beautiful gin that was just destroyed with this crappy tonic water. And it just started us on this conversation that maybe we should make tonic water.
Oh, tonic water.
That was the original idea over several drinks. And we sort of flirted with gin.
Yeah.
And spirits, but we didn't think the tax office would give two idiots like us a license to produce spirits. So we sort of drifted towards tonic water. And I really looked into it for quite some time before I realised, well, I would have to probably make it under contract. I didn't have the wherewithal or the resources to build effectively a soft drink factory. And the whole point of me working for myself and starting a business idea was to get my hands dirty again. You know, I'd worked in wineries and done vintages, and I was probably at my happiest dragging hoses and filling barrels.
Oh, I love that.
But over time I drifted more into sort of winery management and more commercial roles, and ended up sitting behind a desk at a computer, which I didn't love. So to make tonic, I'd be back behind a desk.
Yeah.
So we sort of revisited gin and went from there. But yeah, tonic was the germ of a good idea.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe it started with the tonic water idea, and then so you obviously thought, no, there's something in this gin idea. And
yeah, I think Stu and I arrived rapidly at the conclusion that we're not tonic guys, we were gin guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Love that.
We sort of love hospitality and we love booze and you know, great hospitality, great drinks, aroma, flavour, balance, weight, texture, the same things we look for in wine, we look for in gin. And I sort of had noticed that most of my mates in the wine industry, gin was their white spirit of choice. And that made so much sense to me.
It does make so much sense.
Yeah.
I've never heard it said that way before, but I love wine and my spirit of choice is gin. So it really makes sense that
we're going to be friends.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of Four Pillars, so we were friends before you even knew it. And how did you get Four Pillars off the ground? Because I've read that you did a crowdfunding campaign and you sold like 420 bottles.
Yeah.
Take me back to that story.
Yeah, look, there were enormous moments of tension and nervousness leading up to what started as Four Pillars. The reality is we were pretty well funded. We put the three of us, Matt Jones, Stu Gregor and myself, my other two co-founders and friends, we put a fair bit of our own money in to start this business. I had a bit of a panic attack, one of many in the lead up because Stu has a very successful consultancy called Liquid Ideas, which specialises in PR and comms for food, booze, hospitality, tourism. And he spent 20 years being a specialist and an expert in that area. Matt had a consultancy as a bit of a brand specialist, setting the language of brands and building brands. And they were maintaining those consultancies where I was quitting a job with a mortgage and 3 kids to start a business and putting every cent I had into it. So I'd sort of pushed all my chips into the middle of the table. But we had also raised some money through, I guess, a group of friends and family under the guise that this is a racehorse. We don't know what we don't know. It could be black caviar, it could be a donkey, but don't put money in if you're not prepared to lose it. All we can guarantee is you're going to drink well. And that's about it. They were our gin-vestors.
Oh, I love that.
It's the only time we ever did that with the word gin. I think Matt once sent me an email entitled Ginovation, and I called him and said, that's never to happen again.
It's the one time. Let's so, quit while we're ahead.
Quit while we're ahead. So we'd actually sold a fair, 40-odd% of the business to a group of friends and family before we launched. But Matt looked at the Pozible crowdfunding campaign as just a great way to start building our mailing list and our database. Yeah. And he felt, and Stu felt, that if we could sell 400 bottles in that first month, we'd kind of have 400 brand ambassadors if the brand started to get some traction and some momentum behind it. And it was such a good idea. Imagine if you had one of the first ever bottles of Hendrick's or Tank 10, you'd keep that forever. Yeah. So I was very busy trying to make the stuff and package the stuff, and 420 bottles was just the amount that came out of the still in the first final recipe batch.
Okay.
So we had that. I probably was also a bit of an internet denier back then. Some people deny climate change. I'm just not sure the internet would ever take off, but it turns out it did. And we launched on Pozible. We probably spent more money on the Pozible campaign than we raised on Pozible.
That's so interesting.
To make that noise, the lead up to launching on Pozible was noisy. We really got the word out, and very handy having Stu there who knows everyone, and he's just this born connector. And then it launched, and Matt rang me and said, "Have you looked at Pozible?" And I was like, "Matt, we've been through this. I'm not going to look at the internet, man. I'm too busy." And yeah, sure enough, 4 days later, it had sold out, and then we had a waiting list. And
that is incredible.
Incredible, but terrifying.
Oh, it's like such a rapid. It's not even scaling. It's just like an explosion.
Well, we don't like explosions in distilleries, that's for sure. But
not that kind of explosion.
But I was terrified for a very different reason. Only 3 of us had tasted the gin.
Oh, wow.
And it was a modern interpretation of gin.
Yeah.
So I was sort of crapping myself saying, well, yes, Matt, we may have 400 brand ambassadors. We may also have 400 people who hate the gin. I don't know.
We might have 400 critics.
Really angry people. But thankfully it was really well received, and we started to get reorders, and that momentum just built and built and built. And, that's where the ride began. Was pretty much from that. And sure enough, all of those people became sort of our batch 1 club. And every time we released a new gin, anyone who wasn't, in that club joined that club, and that club always got first dibs on any new release that we did and responded. And to this day, it's rare I go 2 or 3 weeks without someone saying to me at an event or something, I'm part of your batch 1
really?
club.
Wow.
And at the distillery, we would always buy them a drink. It was so lovely to hear that people really came on this ride with us and felt so connected. It was great.
And I think when they see the success as well, to know that they were part of that, like that they saw the potential of the brand so early on, like that would feel pretty validating as well.
It's amazing. I'll never not get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
How did it feel then when you were obviously terrified, and then the momentum built and it became what it is now? How did it feel to know that, this scary idea that you pitched into was working?
You don't have a lot of time to think, to be honest. You know, I said this to a few distilleries on the way through, that Christmas is a really good time to sit down and just have a drink and sort of take a breath and look at how far you've come, whether it's working or it's not working. You can't deny the amount of work that goes into that. It was always such an exciting ride to be on, and I was always thankful to do that. You don't count the hours. You can't do that. You've just got to hang on for the ride and see where it takes you. You know, we made a mountain of mistakes, but we lent on each other really, really well. It was a really interesting Venn diagram of skills between the three of us that overlapped a little bit, but we really respected each other. And when someone was flat and falling apart a bit, the other two would pick them up. And I think that was a very rare combination. It was a recipe for disaster, but it worked really, really well.
It was good that you didn't seem to be like all flat at the same time. You could pick each other up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do see it. I think we were fortunate to have the skill sets that we had. You know, my background was production, commercial background, a little bit of sales and marketing, and a strong hospitality background. Stu with PR and comms and marketing, and a strong wine background, and then Matt with brand and language and strategy. So I see so many small businesses that have one of those, maybe two, but they don't have all three.
No, that's amazing.
And that was a real key for us, for our success, was those really interesting skill sets combined just so well.
And was that a deliberate choice that it was the three of you grouping together, or were you just like best friends and that's what you wanted to do together?
Stu and I have been best friends for a very long time, you know, idiot mates. It's a very special friendship to me, and I hope to him, but we sort of bounce off each other incredibly well, and have done probably since the day we met in the late 90s. He destroyed a promising athletic career of mine by introducing me to long lunches and wine. But we've just been terrific friends, and we had a little wine brand once that was just a bit of a folly. This project couldn't be a folly because it was my house on the line and everything I had, and I had a young family. And he was the one who suggested, well, you know, I've got another guy I work with in, some common clients who might be really interesting. And we got Matt in to write our strategy. That was only a couple of pages, but he narrowed it down really quite succinctly. You know, just make gin. Don't try and make everything. Just make gin. Don't make London dry gin. The world doesn't need another one. Don't make Australiana gin. Make modern Australian gin. There's a place for Australiana gin, but do this. And it was a really interesting little document. And when he sent it through, he said, I don't suppose you want a third partner because this is really interesting. And we kind of went, well, we could do with the money. And he jumped on board.
Well, he did well out of it. So.
Well, he certainly balanced the more juvenile tendencies of Stu and I very, very well. I pity, him because he had to deal with a lot, but he did it very, very well and very diplomatically.
Oh, it sounds like such a great partnership. Why did you call it 4 Pillars? And not 3 Pillars.
Well, Four Pillars was originally a funny, stupid drinking game that Stu and I had, that there were 4 different personalities in the world. The people you can rely on forever, rock solid people, rock stars who walk to the beat of their own drum, but they're very funny but unreliable. Then people who think they're quirky and funny, but they're just pests. And then really bad, evil people. And we called them the 4 Pillars of humanity. Wow. And then when we needed a name, Stu said, what about 4 Pillars? And Matt, being the brand guy, said, oh, my God, you can build anything on 4 pillars. It's like a foundation.
True. Well, that's what I thought. Maybe it was like some sort of gin or distillery reference.
No, it wasn't. That was all it was.
Stupid drinking
game that's far better after midnight. But it was that. And Matt sort of ran with this great applicable brand story that worked in really, really well. And we went from there. But that was 4 pillars. Yeah. It wasn't 4 friends. It wasn't 4 legs on the still. It was that, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You mentioned before, you didn't want to go down the Australiana path, and you have collaborated with international gin makers. How did that come to be? Because a lot of brands would see other gin brands as competitors, but you clearly didn't take that view. And what did that do for 4 Pillars?
Look, I think you'll find the more you dig into Four Pillars, the more immature most of the stories are, but they sort of worked quite well, and we made them look
sounds like it
quite immature and stupid, but they were actually really well curated all the way through. The reality is, though, in 2015, Stu's lovely wife Sal was having a milestone birthday in Italy, and we wanted to go, and I didn't have any money. So we needed a really interesting and inventive way to write this off on tax.
Oh, lovely.
So I found a distillery in Madrid called Santa Maria and pitched to them that we would bring some Australian botanicals over and make gin with them. And that's pretty much what we did. And it started this great international collaboration. The reality is, though, that coming out of the wine industry, everyone's so collaborative in the wine industry. You know, 3 winemakers will take fruit off the same vineyard and not just make 3 different wines, they'll talk about it and share their knowledge. And they won't copy each other, but they all learn. And this whole concept of, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats, that was what we felt, and it wasn't in distilling. In fact, we found most doors were shut on us every time we tried to ask a question of anyone.
Oh, wow.
It was very closed knowledge, and there wasn't a big knowledge bank in Australia because there were a few whiskey distilleries, but half a dozen people making gin. You know, so we found this a really interesting experience. The product itself, our mailing list, loved the idea. What a really interesting product to have something half made in Spain and half made in Australia. And the Spanish distillers came to Australia and made gin with us, and you know, our families are very close friends. Then Hernö in Sweden, Kyoto distillery, and we kind of found, well, something's working here. You know, we won that trophy you alluded to earlier 3 times in London. Hernö's won it 3 times, and Kyoto's won it twice in 11 years.
Wow.
There's something about that you rub shoulders with the people you want to rub shoulders with. But a wonderful experience. It's great to see, you know, Sarah Prowse, who's the head distiller at Four Pillars now, who I hired, and I'm so pleased I did. She's just a rock star, Australian Distiller of the Year this year.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful to see she's continued on that innovation by doing a collaboration with Island Distillery on Great Barrier Island this year. You know, using seaweed and all sorts of interesting things.
Cool.
That's what will keep the brand fresh. That's what keeps your mailing list interested, and that's what keeps your distilling team interested is mucking around and learning and challenging.
Trying different things.
You can always make a different gin. You can always make an interesting product. You just don't need to release lots of it. It can just be small, interesting batches of fun things, and it keeps everyone entertained and amused and well-travelled.
Yeah, definitely. It does. I mean, I've noticed that with my visits to the distillery that sometimes there's like a limited edition and we'll buy it, take it home and, you know, incorporate it into our like meals or date nights and things. It's just adds that like ongoing interest, I think, and engagement with the brand.
Well, I think that was one of the things Stu and Matt allowed me to do was just to fail and innovate and fail and innovate. And so many of those products never saw the light of day. It's a very good reason no one talks about our asparagus gin. Like, but you had to sort of do it.
You did not. Did you have an asparagus gin?
It's the stuff of legend.
Oh, my God.
And so many people swear they've tasted it, but only about 4 of us ever tasted it before it went down the drain. But, you know, for every...
At least you tried.
For every 50 of those, there was a Shiraz gin, which created a category, which I found really interesting. There was a Christmas gin that created a category. There's an olive leaf. You know, there's so many different things and ways and botanicals that we could work on. And those guys were really encouraging with that. And the more, you know, sometimes I would just send them a bottle of gin and we'd jump on the phone. They're both based in Sydney. And they'd say, well, what is this? And I said, well, you know, I thought I'd distill the 1968 Women's Weekly Christmas pudding recipe, which my mum used to use. Oh, right. What's the colour? Oh, well, I aged it in some muscat barrels, added a bit of muscat for sweetness. What is it? And I said, it's Christmas gin.
Christmas gin.
And Matt and Stu would say something like, oh, fuck, I so wanted to hate this. But it's so delicious and it's so good. And Matt would say, sorry, I haven't said a word because I'm just writing the story down. It's just written itself.
It's a great story. And it's so nostalgic, like the Women's Weekly recipe book and Christmas, you know,
fun.
Pudding. And
so much fun. And that whole concept of storytelling.
Yeah.
Which I think if you spoke to Stu and Matt now, they would be telling every brand owner, it's a storytelling business. And we found that a little bit effortless, fun, silly. There's a whole lot of stories that you go, no, that's not going to fly. But constantly challenging the team and coming up with interesting small batch things.
Yeah.
Great fun.
Oh, I love that. At one of my I did a masterclass at Four Pillars recently, and they mentioned that the stills are named after your mothers.
Yes.
And I joked to my husband that this is a feminist distillery, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me about the reason why you named the stills after your mums.
Well, our first still is named Wilma, named after my late mother.
Yeah.
And you would have seen them out at Four Pillars. They're really beautiful stills, made in Germany by Christian Karl. But, it's a risky business, distilling. It is a highly volatile, flammable product and, accidents are, and danger is always evident. And I saw the still and said to Stuart, Matt, I'd really like to name it Wilma because I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and whilst I thought my mother was quite beautiful, she could explode at the drop of a hat. And I think it's really good. And they just said, yeah, that's brilliant. Run with it. And then the second still was Jude, named after Stu's mum. And Jude lives up in Noosa and she's so funny. She is just the most beautiful human being. But then we had a problem because Matt's mum doesn't drink. And I'd informally named the water tank out the back after Matt's mum.
Really?
And I thought, no, we better buy another still. So we got a small pilot still called Eileen, named after his mum.
Oh.
But then we had this opportunity to name stills. Beth is named after Scotty Gould's mum. He ran hospitality for us for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And just did such an amazing job. Linda is named after Elton Pinkster's mum, another hospo guy. And we surprised our team and just named a still after their mum.
Sweet.
And it was a really beautiful moment for everyone.
That's really sweet.
And I didn't realise this until Michelle, who's our ops director, told me one day, Lion had been doing some stats and numbers, and she said, did you realise our business is 53% female?
Oh, wow.
Which is very unusual in booze, particularly, beer would never, beers struggled to get that. We were, and a lot of those people were in very senior positions, marketing director, CFO, HR director, all really great professional young females, which was awesome. I didn't realise that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then you can go with the feminist distillery, I think. Yeah.
I know. I've got 3 daughters, so I have to.
You do? That's amazing.
And a gun licence. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And a gun licence. You had set out to make 15,000 bottles a year, but you ended up at over 1 million and the first carbon neutral gin distillery. How do you protect your craft and, your experimentation, the R&D, the innovation, while you're scaling so quickly and beyond what you expected?
For us, having a background in wine was really great because, and I was fortunate to work with, someone like Steve Flamsteed, who Australian Winemaker of the Year, ran Giant Steps for a decade, probably the best winemaker I know, laser focused on quality and would not skimp on anything even when growing a brand. Volumes of some of those wines grew and grew and grew and they just got better and better and better. And it sort of taught me that if we stay laser focused on quality, we don't cut corners, we will grow and invest ahead of the curve so we can grow, then in a way you reject volume being part of craft. I think there's some wonderful examples of global craft businesses, Hermes. Handmade, beautiful. If anyone says that's not craft, they're kidding themselves. In Australia, Loon, croissants.
True.
Kate, she's amazing, and they are artisans making a lot of product. So I was never worried about that if we could maintain our quality, but that meant we had to buy another still. Jude was the second still, way before we needed it because we could see the growth, but that was a year, 12-month waiting list to get a still.
Oh, wow.
So you're constantly investing.
That's a long time.
A long time. Well, Christian Karl is the size of a city block making stills, but they make less than 1 still a week. They've been around for 140 years. And that's the still. Wow. So we had to sort of preempt that and invest when we didn't really have the money to do so and raise more money when we probably ahead of when we needed it to constantly maintain that. And to this day, I think the gins are better now than they were in 2013 because, we learnt a lot.
Yeah.
But 2, we can, take our time making gin. Sarah's taking her time making gin. She doesn't cut corners. She's a winemaker. I never hired anyone other than people from the wine industry because they've experienced that in wine, that you can grow.
And that volume production.
Absolutely, and you don't cut corners.
Yeah, I think that's such a great perspective, because typically it's thought that like when you scale really quickly, you lose quality, and some brands do.
Yep.
But I love that perspective that you don't have to. You can have the volume and still maintain your craft and maintain your quality. If not, as you said, get better at it.
Well, we never had the argument, but I'm certain we would never have had the argument about running out of stock. Stu and Matt would never have called me and said, you need to rush some batches through, we're going to run out of stock. They might ring and say, how's our production scale levels looking? It's like, well, we're distilling 7 days a week now, or we're distilling twice a day in order to keep up. But our wait times to dilute and package and let gin settle can't change, and it won't change, and the recipe won't change. And there's ways you can cut corners, but we never, ever were worried about doing any of that. We just maintained quality, and they backed me in that, and they invested in what I needed equipment-wise, which was millions of dollars worth of equipment in order to keep up and maintain quality. And I just think the gin's got better and better and better. And the fact that they're still shortlisted for trophies like the one in London at the IWSC is amazing. That's where you've got to be. You've got to be maintaining. We didn't do it to win awards. We did it to maintain quality, and that's your litmus test. Independent
I think,
people.
and that's usually when people win awards, is when they're not focused on the award. They're focused on, the quality and the craft and always being better than themselves.
We always had a theory that if you win one of those awards, you shout it from the rooftops. But if you don't win, you just blame the judges.
Yeah. Well, I do that. So, but I do it subconsciously. I don't just say it out loud. In addition to being your host, I'm also the founder of Legalite. If you're looking for a law firm that can work with your bold ideas, not against them, you can join the movement for better legals at www.legalite.com.au or follow us on Instagram at legalite_au. So I want to know about your eventual exit. Firstly, was it always the plan to one day exit, or was that not even on the radar?
I wouldn't say it wasn't on the radar, but it was never the starting point. We didn't really talk about it at the start. What we talked about was building a great brand and a great business and a great product. And we kind of felt if we got that right, it would be appealing to someone one day.
It would be appealing, yeah.
But the way to get that right was to assume you were going to be there for 20 years. And then you don't make short decisions, short-sighted or short-term decisions. You make very long-term sustainable decisions about product and brand and all of those things. I've seen so many people over the last few years pitch products and pitch businesses, and their starting point is their exit strategy. What are you doing? Like, that just makes no sense to me.
I really love that you've said that, because I've had my business for 10 years now, and I have not built it to sell. Like, I might die with this business. But often I get advisors saying to me, you need to build and grow this business to sell. And I'm like, why? I don't really feel like, I don't want to think about the end when I'm in it and I'm loving it so much. Yeah. So I really love that you said that, because it's very validating, and I'm sure validating for a lot of people listening as well when you get given that advice to just…
Starting a business, you've got to assume you're going to be there for a while, and that you've got to assume you're going to do it because you love it. The reason Lion popped up was we'd already done a couple of rounds of raising money. We'd put more money in ourselves after the first round. We went back to our investors because we'd now bought a property that we were going to fit out, and we'd sort of not run out of money, but we were good at sort of seeing into the future a little bit. Sure. And we thought, well, if there's 20 of you, if 10 of you can come back in with more money, and then we'll bring in some new money and maybe some new skill sets, because some of those investors were great people for us to talk to about finance and law and all sorts of things. But 18 of them came back in because they were having so much fun. We hadn't paid them anything. But they could just see how much fun this was, and they could see that this was happening, So once we'd spent that money, or a lot of it, fitting out the new building and, getting ready for what was next, we were probably faced with a bit of a a choice. Do we put a ceiling on our growth because that's all we can afford to do? Or do we go back to our original idea, which was a global craft brand? And the three of us were on the same page. So, no, well, we're going to need to grow. I don't want to put a ceiling on this. Like why would we? That's crazy. And the choices were, well, you go to the bank. I don't think the bank was going to lend me any more money because I don't think they quite believed the valuation on my little 3-bedroom weatherboard house in Healesville. Mm-hmm. So I was cooked. Stu and Matt, I don't think we're going to put in any more money. We could go to private equity. There's all sorts of ways to raise money. But around about the same time, big spirit companies obviously started to give us a call and see what we were doing. We disrupted enough of the gin category. Yeah. We were outselling Hendrick's in Australia, which was a phenomenal effort.
Huge. Yeah.
But we sort of had a few meetings with them, which were hilarious. One in particular in London that was so funny. We did this big presentation, did a tasting. And Stu, he's a bit of a shit stirrer, and he said, okay, why don't we take a break and you guys then present to us why you want the brand and what you're going to do. And all we saw were these faces sort of blankly looking at each other. And they awkwardly said, we don't have a presentation, which he knew.
Yeah, he knew.
And he said, that's awkward. Well, why don't we just have a break anyway and then we'll come back and maybe we've got some questions for you guys. And we sort of went into another room and he just burst out laughing and he said, these guys are so used to dealing with businesses in distress.
And being pitched to.
Yeah, and businesses desperate to sell.
Wow.
And we're neither. We're profitable, we're growing. We don't need these guys and all they want to do is fix us and we're not broken.
Yeah.
And the questions that, why are you guys doing gin pig dinners where we fed our botanicals to pigs and then we'd work with great chefs around Australia and sell out these dinners? Why are you doing a Christmas review at the Espy in the Gershwin room? Because it's funny. Why are you making marmalade? Because we have to get rid of the oranges.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. And we could just see, they're just going to kill all of that. But then we kept ignoring James Brindley from Lion. Every time he'd ring and leave a message, we're like, what's a beer company you want with a spirit company? And we finally caught up with him for a beer at the CBD Hotel in Sydney, a few little board meeting before that. But basically he said, I just don't want to get in your way. We want to re-enter the spirits business. They used to distribute Bacardi. And we want to leave you guys in charge. We want to invest in you to do what you're doing. And at some point down the track, we will have the conversation as to whether we buy the entire business or we just see how things are going. But devil's in the detail. We'll write it up however you want to write it up. And that's pretty much how it worked. We got Canterbury Partners and DLA Piper involved, who were our lawyers and our M&A guys, and they were so good.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
And we sold half the business to them, which was great. And for the next 4 years, we tripled the size of the business.
Oh, that's incredible.
Just doing what we were doing. They didn't have any impact on us. They didn't help us really much. They were just there and invested in us and allowed us to grow. And that was actually it was an amazing experience actually, yeah.
Wow, because you would not think that of like a big corporate like Lion to kind of just invest and get out of your way, but sounds like that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, it was there were so many moments in that were quite surreal. I remember James Brindley saying, obviously you guys will want to retain 51% and we would look at 49%. And, it was Stu or Matt said, no, it's 50-50. And he sort of said,
are you sure?
Are you sure you want to do
I'm going to say that again.
He said, well, this is a leap of faith for both of us.
Oh, wow.
If the devil is not in the detail, if we don't get that contract right, we don't want to be squabbling with you over 1%. This is a proper partnership or we don't do it. And, so we did 50-50 and we left it to the lawyers to figure out what that looked like. And that worked, incredibly well. They wanted to take out our Ginvestor group and we said no. They've come this far and they backed us. They backed nothing. They put money into nothing.
Yeah.
They deserve a good day.
They absolutely do. That's so great that you advocated for them.
It was great. And they were like, okay, well, the only person you're shortchanging is you. And we're like, well, we're fine with that. We'll have a good day.
Yeah.
But they need a good day. And these were friends and family and it was brilliant. So that's how that sort of came about really. And we built the second part and we've just continued to grow.
Oh, and then they obviously bought the remaining 50% a few years later, 2023.
Yeah. I think that's probably one bit that, in hindsight we would do differently is not so much the final acquisition. That was fine. The way it was structured probably incentivised us to inflate the value of the business by making a lot of very short-term decisions on people and brand, which we didn't want to do. So we said to them, let's just take out that metric of valuation and why don't we just agree on a value 12 months out, and then we don't change anything and make any and you pick up a business that's in great shape, a brand that's in great shape, a distillery that's in great shape, and it's much more seamless than us
making changes,
cutting this and cutting that and in order to pump the value up. And so that was excellent. They said yes to that, and that was
that's
very
really
good.
smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can still focus on the quality and what you love doing.
Yeah, that's seamless. Brand, and we also kept everyone completely informed. Our whole team at the distillery was completely informed pretty much every step of the way as to what we were doing. There weren't any sudden surprises to anyone. Our Ginvestor group was completely on board. We never really ran into any heat on any of that. And when we did those deals, we didn't hide it. We shouted it from the rooftop. We found this a wonderful thing for Australian spirits to celebrate was we have a place on the global stage. It was the odd message on social media about profits going to Japan because Lion's owned by Kieran, which we found hilarious. We were like, what profits? All the tax is staying in Australia, all the income tax. My God, there's nothing going over to Japan except us for a World Cup trip. That's it. So.
Oh, it is funny when you don't know the ins and outs, I guess.
The
perception,
I can understand
it's hilarious.
I could understand it from a distance, but
from a distance.
And we responded to all of them. We didn't shy away from any of those decisions.
No, it sounds like you were really transparent about everything, with especially with your Ginvestors. But I think just as an Australian brand as well, people feel really aligned with it because, you follow, as you said before, it's a story. There's a story in it, and I think a lot of Australians have followed that story. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. And it really resonated with people.
Yeah,
and
it did.
It still does. I live across the road from the distillery.
Oh, do you?
Literally, I see it from my backyard. I can see the roof of the distillery. So I'm there a lot, in the way a lot. I don't work there anymore, but I love seeing the team. And there's people that have been there from day one.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which is great. It's a big part of our community in Hillsville, and I love that. And I hope Lions can just keep that going and really nurture that through, because that's so important for the brand and for the town.
It still does have that feel, even 2 years or 3 years now after their full acquisition.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. You stayed on for a little bit and then left in, was it 2024-ish?
Yes, it was. Yeah, around about this time, 2024.
Yeah. Okay.
I think my restraints are nearly up.
Not that it's going to matter, because instead of retiring on a beach somewhere, you went to, is it the Grass Institute?
Yes, I did.
In France?
Yeah, Institute of Perfumery in Grass. Well, I bought a little block of land in Hillsville. It's about 12 acres in Turrawarra, right near Turrawarra Winery.
Yeah.
And it was always a little bit of a backup plan if I didn't think – I would have loved to have stayed, to be honest. But it's difficult as a founder, and so many people would say this, that I always sort of say it's a bit like selling the family home and then living in it while the new owners renovate.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
And they're not doing anything wrong. It's just not what I would do. So I stayed on to keep my team through and get them through that sort of transition phase from founders to Lion. And I'm glad I did, but I could also see, this is a big corporate business. They're probably not as agile in innovation as I want to be. And I quite liked being in charge. And so I just politely said, look, thanks, guys. And I think they were happy to have me off the books, so that worked pretty well for them too. But this little block of land was always my backup plan. And I've had this interest in fragrance for a while, in fine fragrance, and that stems from gin masterclasses, where so many times in a gin masterclass someone would smell a gin and say, oh, my God, I could wear that.
Oh, true.
And it started this real interest in essential oils, and the distilling is not dissimilar to gin. A lot of the ingredients are identical to gin. So literally my last day at Four Pillars, I closed my laptop, said see you later to the team after we'd had morning tea, drove to the airport and got on a plane to Grasse and started a course the following Monday in perfumery. And I've been back there 4 times now. I've just finished the training in that, and I'm working with a perfumer. So it's an interesting sidestep. I don't want to disrupt 4 Pillars. It's a wonderful legacy in booze. And exciting and nervous and all of those things that come right back to square one.
Are you going to launch it as, a brand that people can buy, or is this something you're, just getting your itching a scratch after an exit?
It's both. It's definitely both. I'm not trying to take over the world with this. This is not a global ambition at all.
Well, who knows? I mean, you probably thought the same thing with 4 Pillars and then next minute. So
Possibly. You never say never. But again, if I get it right, maybe those are easier questions to answer. It serves a number of purposes. I would like to build – I love tourism and I love hospitality. So part of regenerating this property with botanicals and showing people what all of these botanicals are, and that storytelling around fragrance, which I love, and the more I dig into it, the more I love. It's your strongest memory trigger is your sense of smell, that you can smell something that takes you back years, and you can have a good memory or a bad memory. Yeah. It's the only sense that's directly connected to your brain. There's no pathway. Through your sinuses, your brain's actually exposed in that area. And I just love where Australia sits in botanicals. We have a really important place, but we don't know it and we don't celebrate it. Eucalyptus is used in fragrance all over the world. Mimosa is this globally recognised essential oil that's used in fragrance, and it's our national flower. It's silver wattle, and we don't cultivate it in Australia.
Oh,
we grow it. It's everywhere, but it's cultivated in France for essential oils.
Wow.
And it's our national flower.
Oh, my gosh.
We have a sandalwood, we have
That's
Buddha
a huge
wood, cypress.
Opportunity.
There's so many interesting
We've got
stories.
such beautiful natives here and botanicals.
Absolutely.
You're so right. It's, really underrated.
So I'd like to tell those stories, and I'd like people to be able to walk a garden and see what all of these plants are and just tell the story of how these things are made and that distillation process and the essential oil process. So it's very small. The idea is very small, and I would hope maybe this time next year we'll open our doors to a really small sensory tourism experience. But beyond that, I'll deal with that later.
Yeah,
but for the moment, it's just working on the products and the brand and keeping me busy.
That's such a good place to be, though. I really love that you've got that kind of, time and mental space to be able to work on something that clearly brings you joy. Like you can tell talking about it that you're really passionate about this.
Well, I love being busy, and I didn't realise that until I left.
Yeah.
That, when I got back from Grasse and I was sort of umming and ahhing, okay, there's a real interest here and I'm really good with that. But at a time I should have been celebrating, and I was so depressed. And so, not –
I've heard that before.
Yeah, not bored or anything like that, but I don't often – I take for granted the fact that I'd probably like being a bit uncomfortable and I like being a bit stressed.
And have that challenge.
I've got a black belt in being lazy. I'm happy to sit on the couch all weekend, but at the same time my mind is always trying to take a sidestep and think, what would I do if I was that business, or what would I do if I had that product, and trying to just be a bit different. And that's what we'd like to do with this little solo album that I'm working on.
I love that. And what's it called?
It's called Fernie Gare.
Tell me about that name.
It's very simple. It's a little town outside Glasgow that my grandfather came from.
Okay, because I Googled it and I thought, was it named after this town? Also, it's where your grandfather was from.
My grandfather came out from Fernie Gare. So Fernie Gare, Tarrawara. It's got that connection. The name's always been in my family and I like it. It may not be for everyone, but I don't care. It's a bit like 4 Pillars. You just run with it and move on.
And it's got a story behind it. So that's the most beautiful part.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of next chapter looking like? You're just going to see how everything pans out and where this goes with the perfumery?
Yeah, I think so. We're starting to plant a whole lot of things and put all the unsexy stuff of irrigation and drainage, and my good friends at the council are giving me a bit of grief, which is something I'm used to. So It's sort of rinse and repeat. 4 pillars again, just slightly different.
Yeah.
But perhaps I'm a little more relaxed this time.
A bit more relaxed this time. That makes sense.
Only because I've learnt there's no point in me getting stressed and losing sleep over it.
It doesn't change anything,
No,
does it?
it does not change.
Yeah.
And I've just got to sort of coax these people to my way of thinking that it will be an asset for the region, I think. And I love the idea of it. And everyone I've spoken to locally just thinks it's really interesting and fun. And it's got a nice environmental play, regenerating a property that was covered in blackberries. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes for me. I still take a bit of time off to go fishing up in the hills and have my headspace. I'm on a great little sort of blokes mental fitness board called the Fly Program, run up in the snowies, challenging guys to be better with their mental health and adapt it to the outdoors. And they do a bit of fly fishing and a bit of mountain bike riding. And then sit down and actually talk a little bit more about how they become fitter mentally and how they're more aware for their mates. And
that's brilliant.
So I really love that project. So lots on without a lot to show for it.
No, and that's meaningful work as well. So, yeah, not a lot of people talk about it. It's not like the sexy, flashy work out there, but it's so, so important.
Absolutely,
so, yeah, that's incredible that you're doing that too.
It's fun. It's really interesting.
Oh, that's brilliant. I've got one final question for you. What's one piece of advice you've got for someone who has a bold idea of their own?
Only one. Probably there's never a right time. I listen to so many people with great ideas of products and businesses, and there's always, I've got to wait, the kids have got to be a bit older, or I've got to, I'm getting married next month, I've got to get that done, or my parents are a bit old. I've got to wait for this, and there's never a good time. There is just never a good time. There's a less worse time, but there's never a good time.
But that time may not come either. Like people, I think, sometimes put off their ideas and then wait till, say, like next year, and then next year something will happen out of the blue,
always
like a global
else.
pandemic or something.
Stu and I had a famous argument, which is very much linked to this. I think most people do their due diligence on their ideas. You've got to be flexible to allow it to sort of find where it fits and not be so rigid that it's a dumb idea. Be a bit open to things. But I had done so much work on 4 pillars before we started anything. I had researched where to buy the still, and I designed it with these guys in Germany at Christian Karl. I had done financial forecasts, everything. And I was sitting there about to buy the still, 12-month wait, 50% deposit that I was taking off my mortgage to buy the still. We hadn't even formed the business at this point. And next to me is the design of the still and the forecasted P&L, which looked like a murder scene. Like it could not have looked worse. It looked like a money-losing machine. And I just had this minor sort of panic attack. And it was a Friday afternoon. I rang Stu, and he was at a proper Friday lunch. So he'd had a few.
Oh, right.
And he said, "How are you going? You bought the still?" And I said, "Mate, I just don't think I can do it. I'm looking at these numbers and it's a disaster."
This is dismal, yeah.
And he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Mate, this is going to hemorrhage money. I just can't, in good faith, take this off my mortgage." And we had this bit of an argument. He goes, "You know what I want you to do? Write these 3 words down. You got a pen?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Write down. It's ready, fire, aim."
Oof.
And I said, "What's that mean?" He goes, "Stop aiming. Just pull the trigger and get on with it. You're ready for this. You are ready for this. I don't want to talk to you until you bought the still." And he hung up on me. And I was so angry. I was so angry.
Pep talk. Oh, God.
And I bit the bullet and I transferred the money and bought the still. And then I texted him and I said, "Well, I hope to God you're right because I've just bought the still." And he texted back and he said, "What did you do that for? I was only joking." And it's fair to say my text back had some foul language in it. But I do think there is ready, fire, aim. There is a point at which you get there. You can't get there straight away. You do your aiming, but at some point you've got to swap those words. And ready, fire, aim, I think is a point at which you get to where you've just got to do it. And you'll make mistakes. You'll lose a bit of money here and there. There is no perfect launch.
Not going to be perfect ever.
Get on with it, and you learn more doing it that way than just taking too much time. It's mad.
Yeah.
Ready, fire, aim.
I love that. That's brilliant advice. And I think it's so true. There is not one business on this planet that has had a perfect launch, a perfect scale, a perfect exit. It just doesn't exist. How boring.
You've got to fly by the seat of your pants.
I would not have this podcast if it was that straightforward.
No, you've got to, at some point, I think, throw caution to the wind and just get on with it.
And just do it if you believe in it.
If you've got that idea, there's no good time. Ready, fire, aim.
Love it. Well, that is brilliant advice to finish on. I've absolutely loved this conversation and meeting you in person. You're so down to earth, and congratulations on all of your success. And loop me in with Ferniger as well. I would love to be a part of you have to come up with like an initial Ginvestor style name for the perfume brand. I'll have a think about that.
Watch this space. But thanks so much for having me in for a chat. It's been wonderful.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you loved what you heard, make sure you follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Or even better, leave us a review. And if you have a bold idea of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes to get in touch.